Hi, I'm John Bateman. I'm here with my father, Robert Bateman, talking about the upcoming show at the Bateman Center in Victoria called Robert Bateman Heart and Home. It runs from June 18th, 2022 to February 28th, 2023. Dad, thanks for talking to me again.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
I've done it before.
So this show is about basically things you've created for family and friends.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a lot of things that people haven't seen.
That's right.
So I guess I'd like to, maybe just start off in the beginning. What was the first piece that you did make for somebody?
It was, I have a clear, vivid memory. I was 12 years old, and it's a painting about that size. I did for my mother for Christmas, and it was an elk, wapiti, as I guess we could call them, because Europeans call moose elk. And it's standing up on a hill. I base all of my paintings are based on many different sources, and some of them are photography. This was a whole herd of elk. They were about that big in National Geographic on a black and white, talking 1942, or it might have been 1940 National Geographic. And I took one of the elk and I put it on a snowy hillside, and a background is a little bit like a golf course outside of Toronto in the wintertime that had little clumps of evergreens of some kind, coniferous trees. And in the foreground I put a birch tree, which was a birch tree that was growing in our backyard. Happened to be the wrong species. They only grow in Europe, the kind in our backyard, but it didn't matter. So I had the elk and the birch and this snowy landscape, and I put them all together.
So this was for
my mom for
Granny.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Your granny.
Yeah.
And I was 12 in 1942.
Well, so why did you decide to give her a piece of art? Like, why was that? Why did you decide?
Oh, that's it. I've never. That thought has never crossed my mind. I got serious about being an artist when I was about 10 or 12. By the time I was 16, I had painted every hawk and owl in North America. Just there were little paintings like that, and I based them on different references from bird books. There weren't many good bird books back in those days, but I would take a landscape. I've never been to Arizona that looked like Arizona, and put a zone-tailed hawk or something like that in it, and I still have it. But I like to give myself little assignments and projects, and I still do.
And so this assignment was just something you thought, it was for Christmas? That was the occasion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a Christmas present, yep.
Yeah. And that was just something that you decided to give to Granny. I mean, I know she was very supportive of your artwork.
Absolutely.
Anyway. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then as we've gone along, I know where a lot of your motivation comes from for the pieces that you do for different friends and family, and a lot of them come from personal experiences. Particularly I've got a couple of mine. I've got one that I'm trying to decide whether I should talk about the cheetah making the kill in Africa, where I said we were going to see one. You hadn't seen a cheetah kill yet after however many visits, and we saw one, and you drew me a little card.
Oh, yeah.
But then there was also, I think more significant was a lesser kudu experience.
That was a first for me.
Yeah.
Lesser kudus are way rarer and harder to see than a greater kudu. And we had our group had split up into two different Land Rovers with different guides.
Yeah.
And we were headed off in different things.
It was another situation where I was promising you. I knew it was a jinx animal for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you.
I was saying, we'll see one.
You just had that feeling?
Yeah, that's how I ended up with the painting.
Yeah, and we did, and they didn't, as I recall.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's right.
But I remember vividly. And then you did that painting for me when I turned 21, Meru Dusk.
Yeah, that's right. We saw it in Meru Park in Kenya.
And I think that there's so many other interesting pieces there that are going to be in this show. One of them that stands out, as I've been looking at the curator going over stuff, is that it's not just wildlife, the stuff that you give to people.
Yeah.
A lot of your work, you've done a lot of work because you had a show entirely dedicated to Valentines Gifts between you and Birgit. Yeah, and so, you know, what I'd like you to explain is when you're working on a gift for a family member who's around, you know, kind of explain to people what the studio looks like when that's happening.
Oh, well, we, especially if it's bigger, and I usually like it to be a secret. It can't be a surprise because I rope off, not rope off, but set up things that I can hang
Yeah,
sheets
big curtains
and
around.
curtains
Yeah,
around,
yeah.
so I can work behind. And Birgit is very good about not being nosy on purpose.
She doesn't want to spoil the surprise either.
Yeah, and even spoil it for herself. She should just soon be surprised. I'm told that ladies like to be surprised, pleasantly surprised.
Okay, well, I'm sure that
been told that.
I'm sure that worked. Yeah, because I mean, to me, you know, you making gifts, it kind of lent itself to the magic, you know, of Christmas or the event.
Yeah.
You know, where we would be here and the big curtain would be up, and some of us would be allowed to go behind because you would just be really couldn't wait to tell somebody what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of your favorite things to do, and go behind and see. And I think the most impressive one that you did, we talked earlier a little bit before we shot this about technically what was the most difficult, and you kind of said nothing technically was really difficult.
That's right.
Yeah.
I could, just for fun to shed light on the question, a very difficult subject to paint in realism would be a shallow brook that is rapidly running over an interesting bottom with complexity in it, and having some leaves floating on the surface, and have midway between the bottom and the surface some fish.
Right.
And render it so that it's not just a jumble.
So when you explain it out like that, I can see how a huge Nutcracker wouldn't be as much of a problem.
Ah.
Tell me about the Nutcracker.
Well, of course, the Nutcracker Suite is one of the great pieces of music, especially for children, especially for little girls, evidently. But everybody enjoys, and I like the music of Tchaikovsky anyway. So we've taken our kids to a number of different performance of the Nutcracker. I believe the one that I'm speaking about was the Seattle, a company that came up from Seattle. I can't remember if it was Victoria or Vancouver, but it came up to Canada.
I think it was Vancouver.
Okay, and it had just for the heck of it, I'll describe the end of it, because it was the most spectacular ending I've ever seen to any kind of concert.
I'd agree 100% with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Nutcracker, as everybody knows, it's supposed to crack nuts. I've got a Nutcracker here, which we could show, but
which we're going to be looking at. Yeah.
Good. And my Nutcracker does not crack nuts because I have a compound I use.
That's good. I wanted to ask you about this.
As often could be, I could often say, I digress.
I kind of think. I always considered that you essentially invented this compound, but I might be wrong.
I think I did.
Sawdust,
yes,
plaster.
50-50 sawdust and plaster of Paris.
Yeah.
And 50-50 Bonfast or some kind of white glue and water.
Right.
And plaster of Paris, I guess as everyone knows, when you mix it with water, a reaction starts, and you've got X number of minutes before the plaster sets. And then it's not really hard until the next day or so. I mean, you get hours and hours later. But it solidifies in a few minutes. But it's still fairly easy to carve.
Yeah.
With an X-Acto knife or even a butter knife initially. And so that's what I use for the compound. And I can sculpt with it and sculpt with it. And then it takes paint. I use acrylic.
Yeah, you can sand it and
sand it, and that's right.
It's interesting because when I would be, whenever you came in, because I would use your wood shop often when I was visiting, and you'd come in to the table saw and ask for, a
Some
container
sawdust.
of sawdust, and I'd know you're up to something like that.
Yeah.
It was always around Christmas time.
And I take a kitchen sieve
Mm-hmm.
just and sift the sawdust.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want big chunks in it and sticking out of the Nutcracker's face. So this mixture, sawdust and plaster.
So the Nutcracker was based on that ending, that you talk about with the
That's
two
right.
jaws coming together, or the two sets of teeth
Right
coming
from the
together.
top of the
Yeah.
proscenium.
Yeah.
I don't think I already said this.
Yeah,
And
no.
from the stage, I don't know how they arranged the stage, but it coming out of the stage somehow, unless they had an apron which contained the teeth. So the lower teeth came up and the upper teeth came down, and these two gigantic eyeballs and the great hooked nose, and the mustache, and I guess he has a trim beard. And I don't remember the exact dum dum dum
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
And at that final dum, the upper and lower come together, and the teeth go,
Yeah.
and you get this wall to wall double set of
It was
teeth that
huge.
just clamped.
It was huge.
Yeah, and literally, I think everybody in the audience got whiplash from.
Yeah. And everybody stood up instantly. Yeah. And the reason you did that, Nutcracker, I know, is because Birgit has collected Nutcrackers.
Yeah,
and when you made this, that seemed like that was the end of the collection. It's
Might have been. I don't
it
know if
was
she's
kinda-
collected since.
Yeah.
Where do you go from here?
Yeah.
I mean, she's got little model Nutcrackers, which you can buy all over the place at Christmas time. And they got a little handle at the back and the teeth at the front. And mine has a little handle at the back and the teeth at the front,
Yeah.
too. So mine can.
Yeah, you just don't
that
put any
too.
nuts in it. I'm sure nuts have been put in it, in the course of its lifetime. You probably just don't know.
Well, it would wreck the tongue.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
The tongue's not wrecked. I think people respected that.
Some of the other pieces that I saw in the show, and I think, one of the most curious ones was one you did for Christopher. And it's like you would often tap into what we loved.
Or an experience.
Or an experience or a place, And I think one of the most unique ones is the portrait of E.T., the extraterrestrial that you did for Christopher. And I guess that must have been a favorite movie.
It was.
But it's a very unique piece in the show. It's not big, but it's definitely a unique piece.
Yeah, no, I forgot. Can you remember? Because I can remember of course, he had an oval-shaped face.
Yeah. Well, I think it might be an oval mat, and then it's just a portrait of ET in it.
Yeah.
And then mine, for some of mine, there was you put me you placed me in the album cover of Dire Straits' first album, which is the first album I got, and which is my favorite album. And my favorite hockey player, Mike Bossy, you painted. So I always got something. It was like a little reminder of what we did. A summer, in Ontario, or the mantelpiece that I worked on Hornby Island. It's just incredibly meaningful.
I like that make connection.
Yeah, and you certainly do. And I'm just a small sample. It's an incredible. I've seen the array of work that's going in there. It's just an incredible array of work. I'm not sure if you know how much is going to be in there. Yeah. Okay. Art pieces.
Yeah.
But
the artwork, I guess.
Yeah, and they're just. And I think some of the other interesting objects that are in there are people that what people wouldn't think that you did. I mean, there's a little wooden step stool that you carved your diamond oval pattern into. That's been around probably since 1965 or 66. That's in
right.
there.
That's right. Just to follow up on that, diamond and oval, the front door of our house, which is right there, has a diamond and oval pattern in it. It's one slab, exactly an inch thick, of I guess it's 4 feet by 7 feet or something like that of mahogany. Probably all that mahogany's been cut down now. And this is the third house it's been in. when I've moved houses since I was able to afford a house. Starting in Burlington, it was the front door, and I would have a custom-made front door when I sold the house to put on, and I would take off the front door. That's now, this is probably the final house for me.
Then we argue about where that door goes afterwards.
Could be.
I'd like to ask you about your philosophy of gift giving. What is your philosophy of gift giving?
Well, I guess it's easy for me to say because I'm an artist, but I think the gifts should be unique. And if possible, handmade. Somehow, especially created for the person. Now, I guess that's easy for me to say, and everybody doesn't have the knack for doing it. But they could maybe think of some other way of making it unique and special. Otherwise, it just becomes a little bit like automatic pilot.
Well, I think in our family, like, that example you set, I'm pretty sure that just about everybody in our family has made gifts regularly for one another.
Excellent.
I think that would be, I think you've got, exponentially there's more work that could go on that show of what, your children and beer get.
That would be another show. What a good idea.
Yeah, for sure, And that have given to each other, and you certainly have set that example. And I think it's also just a result of us growing up in such a creative environment. Certainly.
Yeah. And your mom is an artist too, of course. So it's I think that's a thought for a future show.
So you're looking forward to seeing the show. Well, you have, obviously this is a lot of work you haven't seen in a long time, and some stuff you probably have forgotten about even making.
That's coming out of the kids' houses.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah,
and you're going to be at the opening.
Yes, so I'm told.
You are. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for talking to me about the show, Dad.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. It's so much fun sitting down and chatting with you. So that's Robert Bateman Heart and Home. That's going to be at the Bateman Center in Victoria, opening on June 18th, 2022, going through until February 28th, 2023.
Thank you.